Yes, sir. Welcome back to another Chop or Die film session. I am your host of the Chop or Die podcast, Mual, Jamal Forrest. And listen, after a 14-7 loss against the New York Giants, right? I think we all know what this film session is going to cover, man. What the hell is going on in the enemy's offense, right? Now, granted, when I say the enemy, I don't just mean him. Like, there's obviously several things going on, and that's what we're going to point to in this film session. It's not pretty. I actually, at the time of me recording this intro, don't even know how long this film session is going to go. I hope that it's not too long, man, for our sake, but it was painful to watch several things that went on throughout the day that was problematic, but let's go ahead and tap into it. As always, like, subscribe, man. Let's get into this film session. Chop it down. All right, so for me, the way I do my note taking when I break down film, I really go from quarter one, 15 minutes, up until quarter four, 000. So everything that you see is likely going to be in sequence of how the game flow went. I'm not going to be jumping around from quarter to quarter or one play in the first quarter to another play in the fourth quarter. So let's go ahead and get that started. First play we're going to talk about is the first Sam Howell sack. Nick Gates had a rough day, man, and it was essentially encapsulated on that first play. That second play, for Washington. You get a 2nd and 9, right? So you have essentially a little man coverage or man pressure, right? And immediately you have a 5-man pressure where 41 essentially crosses to the opposite gap of where Nick Gates is, but Nick Gates is responsible for obviously cleaning up Dexter Lawrence and kind of washing him, or even what you would want from a good offensive lineman is just stalemating the pass rush, right? But Dexter Lawrence is able to get penetration immediately on Nick Gates, who, again, as I mentioned, had a hell of a day in the worst way against Dexter Lawrence. So you kind of see the rush that Dexter Lawrence had, right? But we can talk about how Sam could have been able to mitigate this, right? So let's go ahead and look on the front side of the play. You'll see that they're running some form of mesh concept between the two tight ends, John Bates and Logan Thomas, right? It's not an unfamiliar one where you have that one mesh person really run and I said man, it wasn't man, I think it was cover 3 on the back end, but you see what Logan is doing, right? Sometimes Terry does it, sometimes Jahan do it, but they split the two middle of the field linebacker, second level defenders, and they sit in the middle for the quarterback. So you have somewhat of a mesh between John and Logan, and you have Jahan just leaking in the flats wide open, right? Mind you, 2nd and 9 too, 2nd and 9, but when you see the type of pressure that Nick Gates has immediately, this is the part where you hope that your quarterback can feel the pressure on his drop back, as well as having a plan for when that pressure gets home as quickly, right? So when you reach right here, right, let's go ahead and run this back. I hope you saw it. I didn't say anything, but that pat right there, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the pat, but what I'm saying is when you see that alley that's created right there, your thoughts should be saying, like, I see I'm going through my progressions, but also I don't have that much time. I need to step up and make a play. So as you step up and make a play, again, looking at it from this angle, there's an opportunity to do something there, whether it's a scramble drill or whether it's you actually taking off and trying to get some yards for yourself. Now, I'm not overly critical of this instance because Nick Gates got beat. He got beat quickly. He got beat bad, right? He gave up off rip in terms of the power rush. He wasn't able to sustain that. He did, however, in his recovery, wash Lawrence to the point in which he created an alley along with Brian Robinson and Sadiq Charles for Sam Howell to step up. But he would have had to have done it at the time that he patted the ball. So again, all I'm saying is on this first sack, you're talking about a person in Howell and Nick Gates who both had errors. But obviously Nick Gates didn't do a good job protecting his quarterback. Another rep, and this is important to remember as we go further in the film session, because we're going to talk about something that ties into this. If you all remember, Terry had mentioned post-game how he was essentially in a position where he thought that Washington could have used more or took more advantage of the go balls when the New York Giants decided to pressure, right? And here you see Terry McLaurin at the bottom of your screen, right, against press man coverage, and he wins. He's already stacking and he's winning alongside the boundary, right? And when you look at, contextually speaking, this is 3rd and 6 on their second drive. When you look at the middle safety, right, or the single high safety, he is in a position where he isn't able to recover if Sam Howell was decided to challenge that one-on-one safety on the field side covering Terry McLaurin. At this point, you see that Terry is wide open from a standpoint of separation. He has the leverage. He has stacked the cornerback. There's an opportunity to challenge, right? But we decided to throw it to Jahan Dotson over the middle for what could have been an interception. So what's going on here, from what I'm seeing, is obviously you have that one single high safety, but now you have a disguised pressure look up front. What really hurts Sam Howell is trying to decipher between the pressure, but also knowing if you get this type of pressure, where do I need to go with the football, right? And that's ultimately what led to the decision. But then you see up front, again, Nick Gates going through hell with Dexter Lawrence. So you got pressure in your face again, right? And for a protection that was somewhat better than the last play I showed you, having somebody at your feet in terms of your lineman and Dexter Lawrence barreling down on you again, that's not a good look. But again, keep this in mind because we will circle back to this later in the session. All right, so here we are with Sam's second sack. Pretty much a clean hit for Leonard Williams, right? Anybody would love something like that where you ain't got no blocker on you. It's just you and the quarterback. He's in the pocket and you got a chance to unload on that man, right? So that's what you see on the front end. Let's talk about what happened on the offensive line. Again, so Wink all day, disguising pressures. You'll see twist games where mainly Nick Gates and Sadiq Charles struggle picking up their line game stunts, TT stunts. Sometimes you use the linebackers on a 3-man stunt, right? A 3-man line game. Sometimes you use Kayvon Thibodeau, who's number 5 on the edge. You would use him to loop all the way to the opposite side, the opposite B gap or opposite A gap, and try to create penetration. But here it's a TT stunt between Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. And Sadiq Charles commits on Dexter, right? Pushes him, tries to wash him into Sam Cosmi. But at that moment, he's not recognizing the loop that's occurring right here. So at that point, Leonard Williams goes free for his sack in the Giants' second sack of the day. But on the front end, when we talk about protection, right, and people doing their job, obviously the interior messed up on this play, right? Clear as day, no excuses, nothing to talk about there. It happened. Now you have 7-man protection in a sense, right? With your chip being De'Ami Brown on your edge rusher and Antonio Gibson being your chip on the opposite edge rusher as he releases to the flat at the top of your screen. So now you have 2 at this point. Look where Sam Howell is at. He's not touched yet. He is also not pressured just yet. But you do have Leonard Williams barreling down on you. The Giants are in a cover 2, and you're talking about a 3rd and 4. So they're playing a soft cover 2 with your receiver and De'Ami Brown releasing straight to the flats, and Antonio Gibson at the top of your screen releasing to the flats again. Soft cover 2. You have an opportunity for sticks here if you check it down and get the ball out of your hands quick, right? He's obviously barreling down. If you look at the middle of the field, he's barreling down Cole Turner, who, if thrown, had a defender, the Tampa 2 defender, closing in on him and trying to break up the play. So again, this one is a line game that worked very good against Washington from Wink Martindale. Well-executed line game between the Giants, but also a situation where, you know, if you're Sam Howell, you got to be aware of where your checkdowns are and understand that your read isn't there yet. So find Antonio Gibson or find De'Ami Brown, hit the check down, and we're talking about possibly a first down and the drive being extended. But instead they're punting because we take a sack. Okay, so as we continue, look, I told you it's going to be ugly because I know I mentioned Sam Howell a lot. If you think I'm only mentioning Sam to put blame at the feet of Sam, that's not true. I want to be clear. When I talk about these plays, Sam Howell is the quarterback, but we're also, pay attention, talking about what Wink Martindale is doing. We're talking about how the offensive line is reacting to what Wink Martindale is doing. And then we're also showing from a play design standpoint, how Washington is getting in trouble. Right? So this is one of the plays where Washington is getting in trouble from their play call, not the protection numbers, but the play call, right? So we're talking about a free man on the edge. But let's look closely at what happens up front. So you're talking about 3rd and 7, where Washington is keeping 7 in to block to match the Giants' 7-man rush. What you're seeing right here is, first off, a bad call in terms of a slide protection. I don't know who's responsible for that or who shares the most of the blame between Nick Gates and Sam Howell. We're not going to worry about the blame share. We're just going to say that it was a bad slide protection or protection call. Doesn't matter. But you did have 7 in to match their 7, so everybody in theory should have gotten picked up, or you should have washed the pass rush to the point where you have one clear free rusher that Sam Howell has to beat, right? But now you have, when I mentioned Kayvon looping, right? He's on your left side of the screen behind that edge rusher 27 or that blitzing DB, and he loops around 58 to get into that gap that Nick Gates vacated essentially. leaving Brian Robinson to pick up the linebacker. So in theory, and what you're seeing is a line game with a 7-man pressure to confuse your essentially rookie quarterback. You get a free man off the edge, and at the time in which Sam Howell gets at the top of his drop, he literally has nowhere to go because the rush is already there. And from a standpoint of the front end or the receivers downfield, this one hurts because Terry McLaurin is open, right? He wins immediately versus man coverage. First step inside, wins off rip, right? But Sam Howell isn't able to get the ball to him. At the very time that Terry McLaurin puts his hands up, he's looking at the rush. Protection scheme. We don't know whose fault that is majority. It may be Nick Gates, it may be Sam Howell, maybe a mixture of both. We don't know. But you're talking about a situation now where you have your 7, but your 7 isn't picking up their 7. And you still have a free man, even though y'all got even numbers. And we get another sack. That's the 3rd sack of the day. One of the ways that Washington could have mitigated the rush and eliminated the pressure for Sam in the offense was those sprint outs, like moving the pocket, trying to get different platforms and get that pressure off of Washington to keep them in front of the sticks. And this is what one of the plays happened on the 1st and 10, right? Now, this drive ultimately resulted in an interception for Deonte Banks. But good design from Bieniemy. I don't know what took him so long. Like, this probably should have been part of the game plan from quarter 1. But again, switch release from Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. I think you're facing what looks like your cover 3 to the field side, right? Yeah, I think this is cover 3. You have Terry running a short route, and you have Jahan running an out route as well off the switch release. Good ball from Sam, and good job from Jahan coming back to the football, because if he's flat on that route, if it's a bad throw, you may be talking about a pick 6. Who knows? But good ball from Sam Howell. Good design and good call from Bieniemy to help that offensive line out and help Sam Howell out. And you're talking about a team who at that point was on 1st and 10. You get an 8-yard pickup, and now you're talking about 2nd and 2. You're ahead of the sticks, and you're not talking about getting sacked for 50 yards on one play. So now we're talking about a sprint out, but what happens just a few plays later is Sam Howell's 4th sack. Again, the interception happened a little later after on that same drive with the sprint out to mitigate the pressure. But now you're talking about 4th sack and 4th sack of the first half. When we mention those line games, right, here you see 98 and 55 running the line game. I'm sorry. Let me even be clear. If you look, it's 98, 97, and 55. As you see, 97 and 99 slanting to the left, right? And 55 from the B gap is looping around both of them to get inside the A gap of the opposite side. So essentially, Nick Gates never sees him. And by the time that he sees him, look where he's at when he looks over. 55 is already barreling down. And when you look at Wiley on the edge, right? I want to be clear, like, Wiley was able to pick up everything, but he trips. He trips in pass protection on Sam Cosmi's foot. We'll slow that down just a little bit. So that ultimately gives Dexter Lawrence the edge, who gets the sack on Sam Howell. So again, we're talking about the twist game for the Giants being very effective, right? They're doing their job on the front end, but also you're talking about a team and Nick Gates, and you'll see at times, or maybe you'll come to find out Sadiq Charles having issues up front as well, but Nick Gates in particular is struggling throughout the day in his one-on-ones and handling the twist game of the New York Giants. Man, that's not good football. So that's a protection scheme. That's a execution issue more so than it is the fact that Eric Bieniemy not really helping him out. But if you do see on the front end, right, what do you have? You have your tight end here to chip, right? But at the same time, there's not much he could do. Like, that is his responsibility. And if you have your edge defender in 55 slant inside, or excuse me, let me be clear. If you have your edge defender in 55 and the other blitz on the outside of, I think that's Logan Thomas, if he drops in coverage, right? Now he's just waiting on somebody to come through so he can chip him before he gets out there. Either way, at that point, you're talking about a person who's already hit by the time each receiver reaches their break point. How on this one, essentially a sitting duck. There's not much he could do. When I mentioned him getting hit at the top of the break point for the other play, is somewhat similar here. I think this is a 2nd and 9. So this is the 6th sack of last sack of the day, thank God. But early third quarter, I think the second play of the third quarter, where, you would imagine the second half adjustments, things start to change, but they don't change as early as they should, right? And granted, as we pause here, let's state the fact that Eric Bieniemy lost the first half. But I did think that he came out in the second half and was able to be much more effective. But again, in this pass protection situation, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blockers. And they're sending 6, right? But now you have a green dog because Brian Robinson decides to stay in the block, or he's supposed to stay in the block, right? But as he chooses 19, it's a delayed blitz in a sense, right? Your green dog is just when your running back or whoever is supposed to have the running back, right? The linebacker, whoever it is, if they stay in, you get the green light to go rush the quarterback. That's exactly what it did. He came in unaccounted for, and it flushed Sam Howell into Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon, I believe that is. Yeah, Kayvon. On the front end, one more time. What happens at the break point? As soon as everybody turns their head to look for the ball, Sam's already hit. And this is a 2nd and 9 situation. So you had the numbers to pick up the pressure and the blitz, but you still getting free rushers in. So what changes in the second half, right? Something has to change in the second half for me to say that Bieniemy played a much better or called a much better game in the second half to help out his offensive line and Sam Howell and himself out. Let's talk about this. Now, we mentioned the one sprint or the one sprint out early on. This one was a 4th and 1 that gains like 7 or 8 yards for Jahan Dotson. And you're talking about not a switch release this time, but an inside release versus man coverage to get that cornerback. First step, thinking inside for Jahan as he bounces right back out, setting up essentially a natural pick play because Terry's running a corner route, like a short corner. So it's like a designed and natural pick play. You get a first down for 8 yards. Next up, you start taking advantage of the go balls. Remember what I said earlier when I said we're going to come back to that Terry play, right? So now you're seeing that single high safety, Terry McLaurin and Sam Howell both on the boundary side, right? The safety is on the boundary side. His first step is towards Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin is a dog. He makes a big play for the team. He has a tough ass grab, right? And we're talking about a person at the catch point making a hell of a grab in a big situation where Washington needed it. But again, setup rise. You see the coverage with the pre-snap motion to the sideline. He indicates man coverage at the snap. Terry wins at the snap. Not too much, right? But he wins just enough. And if there wasn't safety help over there, you're talking about a cleaner catch, but or a less difficult catch. You get the flag anyway, so it doesn't matter. But you're seeing from a man coverage concept with a pressure up front, win immediately, get over the top. And that's exactly what they did on this play. Same drive, same player, same situation. Now, this one was a little hospital ball, and I'm glad that the previous penalty kind of scared the DB, the safety, off of Terry McLaurin. So it was a much cleaner catch than what it could have been. It could have got nastier, but now you're talking about from a similar situation from the very first play that I showed you where he targeted Jahan Dotson. Now Terry's on the field side, right? And that safety is lined up on the opposite hash, right? So now we're talking about targeting Terry when you get those one-on-one coverages. And for Sam, I think the only thing that he could have done differently here is hold off that safety a little bit longer. Like he went straight to Terry with his eyes. And that got the safety back in play, right? You see his eyes right there. Now we're going to look at the safety again. He could have held the safety a little bit longer, but he didn't. And it gave the safety an opportunity to get towards Terry. If he threw a better ball and he held that safety a little bit longer, we may be talking about a bigger play. Maybe. But again, you see from a concept standpoint or somebody who got into Sam's ears, like this is what we need to do because they are giving us these go balls. They are giving us these fades and we are not taking advantage of it. However, right, I mentioned that the Giants are giving them these situations, right? One of the things that Washington came across, Bieniemy, again, he was in a dogfight with Wink Martindale. And what Wink Martindale started to see as soon as Sam Howell started challenging with the go balls, what does he do? He takes that single high look that he's been doing all day, which generally indicated that they were going to stay in cover one or be in a cover zero. He switches it up. And now you're talking about a single high look pre-snap to rotating in a two high cover two man. So what does that do for Sam Howell? It confuses him. But I want to be clear. I don't know if it truly confused him or he did see that single high rotate into a two high man look and he said, F it, I'm gonna go to Pringle anyway. Either way, a better ball is probably a turnover. But you see what Wink Martindale did to counter what Sam and Bieniemy was able to connect on that previous drive. And you get an incomplete. But let's go back to the play, because if we read this right, pre-snap and post-snap, we're talking about a bigger play over the middle of the field when the middle of the field was wide open. Jahan Dotson lined up in the slot, faced outside leverage. Wins at the break point, because he's already inside. And there you go. Again, let's look. At the top of his drop, Jahan Dotson's wide open. There's nobody in the middle of the field to cover him. He already had separation from the slot corner. This should be a catch. If he breaks a tackle, good. We're talking about a bigger play. But if he catches the ball, we're talking about a first down. The Giants win the play. It's exactly what they wanted. Granted, there was a holding on this play that extended the drive for Washington, but you get my point. Again, similar thing. Now we have Wink Martindale changing up his looks, right? So now we're talking about a two high look that converts to a single high cover one man. But look at the bottom of your screen. Oh, I'm sorry, top of your screen. Let me make sure if I'm tripping. Yeah, mouth guard. You always know where Jahan Dotson is by looking at the mouth guard. But again, when that single high, right, comes up and that strong safety comes down, look at the top of your screen. Jahan stacks, he wins at the break point, and he has a step on the cornerback. So now we're talking about another opportunity missed by in part, not like you get a completion, it is what it is. But you're talking about an opportunity where, again, the whole game plan was to be more aggressive, and you missed an opportunity because the disguise from the Giants was successful in confusing Sam Howell. So now as we gear up for the last drive, there's these last couple plays that I'm going to show you. It kind of encapsulates, the day in pass protection and pressure wise, right? Again, Washington uses another sprint out action, switch release that clears the way for Jahan Dotson to get 8 yards on a 2nd and 11. I think the most important thing as we look at these switch releases, right? And I think I have one more in the books for us. But the thing with these switch releases for Washington is just understanding that we're talking about a team here who utilized 8 sprint outs on the day, moving the pocket. 7 of them came in the second half. Of those 8, 6 of them were completions. One of the incompletions was a throwaway. And that throwaway was a play where Logan Thomas just tripped coming out of the backfield, which could have been an easy completion as he rolled out of the pocket. So again, 7 second half rollouts. It took Bieniemy till the second half to figure out something that can help mitigate the pressure for Washington. And when they used the sprint outs, they were completions damn near every time. The Giants couldn't adjust to them quick enough, and Washington couldn't use them faster than what they did. And that is a damn shame throughout the game. All right, here we go. As you all remember, man, we know the last play to Jahan Dotson was a unfortunate situation. Pass was behind him. And then you're talking about the fact that he didn't catch it when the ball hit him in his hands. It is what it is. But now we're going to close out on these last 2 plays that are essential to missed opportunities throughout the day, right? Both is a 4th down and 1, and then I think a 3rd and 5, right? But both are against cover 0 pressures. Terry McLaurin gets the first down on the 4th and 1 here, but the play was designed to hook Curtis Samuel up from the slot, who's running a wheel route. So at that point, maybe he just wants the easy pass for a first down. But even still, that read is taking Terry into the linebacker, which could have been picked. So you have Jahan Dotson at the top of your screen, and then you have Curtis Samuel, which is intended for, in this man situation, used as a pick in the end zone. There's nobody over top of Curtis Samuel. You just throw the football, and you're talking about a touchdown. So maybe Sam Howell didn't trust himself, and he just wanted to get the ball to Terry. So you get that decision right there. First down, moves the sticks, right? We don't even need to look at the pressure up front. Like, the ball is out. He's trying to get forward. But now you're looking at the second play. And this is your 3rd and 5 situation right before the Jahan Dotson drop pass, turnover on downs. You get a trips look, essentially a 4-by-1 situation, right? With your Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Chris Rodriguez in the backfield. Terry McLaurin isolated. He throws a fade to Terry. I don't know why Terry stops. Who knows? But he feels like he's probably covered. Terry is. But look at your field side with the trips formation and where Curtis Samuel is over the middle. Maybe he didn't know it was man coverage or cover zero, and that's what forced him to go to Terry. But you see the opportunities that Washington had in the middle of the field. And this is a Bieniemy thing where he schemes Terry McLaurin open. Curtis Samuel open, but he doesn't get targeted either one, and Terry McLaurin gets targeted both times, right? Bieniemy, that is a person who understands how he can win. He dialed up some plays. The opportunities wasn't there, and that's unfortunate on that last drive. But we're also talking about a coordinator who lost the first half battle against Wink Martindale, who was dialing up all day. Second half, you're talking about better slide protections, protection calls. You're talking about getting opportunities to your playmakers on the boundary, and either your quarterback isn't seeing it right, or he is hitting it, finally making plays. He only got 2 of them, but there was more plays left on the table for Washington in that second half where Bieniemy gave opportunities from the play call to the prediction or predictive play call and seeing what Wink is going to do against them. It was a mess against the New York Giants, but it wasn't solely at the feet of one person. We talked about how Nick Gates failed. We talked about, or I mentioned how Sadiq Charles struggled as well. They both struggled in picking up stunts in pass protection that contributed to the pressure and sacks that Sam Howell took. But then Sam Howell missed some opportunities. Sam Howell wasn't able to see things clearly, and it took Eric Bieniemy way longer to adjust than what he should have, and ultimately all boiled down to Washington not being able to score more than 7 points on the day against the New York Giants. Hope you stuck with me from start to finish. If you did, I appreciate you. But on to Philly, man, we're going to keep this thing going. I hope you all appreciate it. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. Let us know your comments and the thoughts, man. If you think I'm dead wrong, tell me why I'm dead wrong, even though I'm not. That's going to wrap it up for us, man. Appreciate y'all watching, all that good stuff. Peace.
Chop it down, chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Damn, set, watch him throw the ball, man. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.